two more terms for you to write down today, at least to begin with. One is called a limiting factor. This is a needed resource that is in very limited supply. So I'm sure you can think of some right off the top of your head, but these would be things like food, water, shelter. Those are the most basic things that all creatures need, including you. You might argue that humans have such complex levels of society that there's even more limited factors that are out there that you can argue. I'm sure you can think of some, right? That you would argue that is more needed. Um, Another one could just be like mates. That could be another one too for the animal kingdom. Then the carrying capacity is the largest population that a given environment can support over a long period of time. So what that means is that, well, let's think about like planet Earth, for example. There are roughly about 7.5 billion people that live on this planet. This planet cannot support, let's say, 100 billion people, right? There is going to be a limit in which there's just no way that the planet can handle more. And maybe we'll naturally come to that point, or maybe something will have to happen. I don't know. But you can see that there's examples of what happens when a place becomes too overpopulated in nature. And I actually have a comic for you to read. I'm going to kind of read through it with you right now that kind of helps demonstrate this. So, this is all a true story of what really happened, and this is called St. Matthew Island. So, St. Matthew Island is a remote outcrop in the Bering Sea, about 300 kilometers from the mainland, the main part of Alaska. And in 1944, the U.S. Coast Guard establishes a LORAN, LORAN, a long-range radio navigation system on St. Matthew Island, and it has about 19 people working there. So 29 reindeer, yes, reindeer are a real creature. They do not fly, but they do exist. And they are brought to the island, and it's basically just a backup food source. Just in case things go wrong, you can, kill one of the reindeer and you can eat and you can survive, just in case. However, in a couple months, they were planning on being there longer, but a couple months, the station is decommissioned and the men are called back, so no longer staying there. However, they leave the reindeer behind. They do not take the reindeer back with them. The reindeer are left on the island. So the reindeer find themselves on an island rich in their favorite food, which is called lichen. You might remember the lichen. We may have brushed on it shortly during the weather and erosion unit. Lichen is a little green-like creature. It could be different colors too. It attaches itself to rocks and trees, and it basically just like absorbs and breaks down using their chemical weathering, breaking down whatever it's on. It attaches itself to that. Now, the reindeer love the lichen. Absolutely love it. So they have abundant resources, right? All the lichen they can want, and no natural predators. So what they start to do is they start to breed prolifically. Prolifically means a lot. And they are really good at what they're doing. They increase their numbers a lot. In 1957, humans visit St. Matthew Island on a research trip. So they come back, and in 13 years from when they originally came there, the reindeer herd has ballooned from, it was originally 29, and now it is 1,350 individuals there. A lot more reindeer than before. This is the unintended consequence of leaving these reindeer behind without any predators to kind of keep them in check. So the reindeer are in excellent health. They're nice and fat, and in the animal kingdom, if you can afford the opportunity to be fat, that means that you will last longer if there is a time where there's no food. So it's good to have extra layers of fat on you in the animal kingdom. In the summer of 1963, the researchers revisit St. Matthew Island, and in 6 more years from when they last visited, the reindeer population has now soared from 1,350 to 6,000. So you can see by the drawings here, it's getting a little crowded on there. There is a lot of reindeer. And the dense herd's appetite, they actually ate up all the lichen. So now they're eating up all the grass. It's like their second favorite food. It's, they don't love it, but it's enough to sustain them. But there is now increased competition for food, right? They're all competing for the same amount of food there. And because of that, their body weight has dropped. So they're not as healthy as they once were before. In the summer of 1966, the researchers returned to St. Matthew Island. And to their horror, they find the island littered with reindeer skeletons. From a population peak of 6,000, there are now 42 reindeer that remain, 41 females and one infertile male. There are no calves, no babies. Infertile means that it's not able to have babies. So it exists, but no longer able to have babies. Yeah. So, with their habitat's resources stretched, the population was not able to survive the extremes of winter when there wasn't nearly enough food. So, in a matter of months, the population crashed by more than 99%. Without a way to reproduce, the reindeer population died off completely by the 1980s. So the island's untapped or unused previously natural resources was the reindeer's source of prosperity. It's what made them grow so quickly, but it was also the seeds of their demise because it caused so many of them, right, to breed, but they didn't have anything to keep their population in check. The island was only so big, its resources only so many. And then it pulls back to say, well, how big is our island? Interesting, meaning like humans here on Earth. So what I like about that is it harkens back to our original word that we were talking about, which is the carrying capacity. What is the largest population that a given environment can support over a long period of time? Well, you saw there that maybe it was 1,000 or so that it was able to sustain. And then when it had more than that, I mean, went up to 6,000, that's 6 times the amount that it was able to sustain. They used up all the resources. So that's what can happen if there's nothing that will keep their population in check. And you can see right over here, one more thing to show this. Unrestricted deer population growth may diminish the habitat's carrying capacity over time. So let's take a look at this blue line. This blue line is the carrying capacity. So this is how much that the population can hold. So this red line is the deer population size. Now notice this exponential curve. It is increasing drastically, getting more and more. And you see it's kind of scary as it approaches that carrying capacity. Once it starts eating too much of the material that are right there, all of a sudden, just like we saw, the population crashes. But because of that, the carrying capacity is now reduced from habitat damage. So it never actually gets quite back to that level as before. It often goes in a cycle of going up and then coming back down like this. But if you go above it that much, you might severely damage the habitat from then on forth for the long-term health of the species.